basically through a dozen practices of fall camp for the Texas Longhorns so far. And Cody, things are starting to kind of come into more focus regarding what we think the initial depth charts are going to look like on both the offensive and defensive side of the ball. We've talked a little bit about defense before, but today I wanted to talk about offense and just kind of get the lay of the land of, are there any position battles still looming? Who's locked in? What's going on with the team? Is we're basically at the halfway point of fall camp at this point. You consider that they've had 2 weeks of practice so far. They're going to have another 2 weeks of practice before we get into game week. Regular, like, we just have 2 more weeks of fall camp. Then after that, we're into the game week, and we're gonna get the SEC coaches call, and there's the Sark on Monday and Sark again on Thursday for the injury reports and all the rest. So it's where are we? Halfway through, taking stock of that. Thanks though first to the Man Eye Institute. See life better. Make sure and give these guys a call for all of your talking about things coming into focus. If you need your vision to come into focus, look into the next level LASIK. Right, it's gonna help you in ways that traditional LASIK just was not able to do. Just look at what they're able to do with Texas edge rush star Colin Simmons. He's not going to have to wear contacts anymore. He's going to rack up 20 sacks this year. That's all thanks to the Man Eye Institute. See life better. Give them a phone call. 844-WOW-2020. 844-WOW-2020. If it's good enough for Colin Simmons, it's good enough for you. All right. Cody, where do you want to start? Offensive line?
Can we start a quarterback?
Sure. Yeah, we start a quarterback. The way I have quarterback listed right now, of course, I have Arch Manning at the very top. I think if you were just lining things up beneath him, I kind of take some stock into what the reporting was coming into the scrimmage this weekend, and that was they got to figure out who their backup quarterback is.
Yeah.
Right. And I looked at this exercise as far as putting together the depth chart projection through the lens of what's it going to be for Ohio State, right? In the Ohio State game, somebody gets a hangnail or stubs their toe, right? Who comes in? And I can't see KJ Lacey coming in. So whenever we look at like a wide open depth chart behind Arch Manning, the way I have it listed is Arch Manning, Trey Owens, or Matthew Caldwell, and KJ Lacey behind those guys. I don't know if there's a lean that you have with either of those guys. It feels like to me what we've heard about Trey Owens from behind the scenes. We knew in the spring, they came out of spring a little bit disappointed in the progression that he had shown and the maybe some focus things, right? That's why they brought in Matthew Caldwell, to a guy who's actually played. If I had to rank him in order without putting the cowardly or between those two, I don't know. I don't know. Part of me still thinks about Houston Touchdown Club Player of the Year, Trey Owens, a guy who people had a lot of high hopes for, a guy that we've seen flash in spring games, prior. As far as Matthew Caldwell, I'm not sure that I saw much out of him in the tape that we were able to watch whenever he came in, but he does have the experience that coaches are going to lean on as far as throwing a player in a game like Ohio State. So I guess I would make it go Arch Manning, Matthew Caldwell, Trey Owens, KJ Lacey.
I think that's right. For where we are square in the middle of August, looking at that Ohio State game, looking at kind of the way through there. And I think that it's just the Ohio State game, but I think you have those next 3 games where you could potentially see a shift, because I think that game carries so much weight in exchange with the UTEP, Sam Houston stuff the following weeks before you get into SEC play, that in those 3 weeks, we could see live reps from all 3 of these guys in games, in those 3 games. It wouldn't shock me. They get up 35-42 rip, 35-42-7, whatever it is. The second half is like, all right, we got to drive for Caldwell. We got to drive for Owens. We got to drive for stuff like this. Wouldn't shock me at all. And with that happening, I think we could see a big change in Lacey potentially getting up to that 2 spot through those 3 games going into SEC play. But I would agree with you 100%. You have to prepare with the most veteran, quarterback as your next man up in that Ohio State. That is just a different game. It carries different weight. And you can't just put a true freshman in there. I think what this really says to me though, in the stuff we've heard about Caldwell over the weekend, during the scrimmage, and just seeing Lacey with my own eyes at practice a week or so ago. Like, I think he's the best ball spinner of the three. Caldwell probably picks up the offense the fastest. It seems like Owens kind of is potentially in no man's
I
land.
don't know if he picks up the offense the fastest because I mean Owens has at least been in the offense for a while.
But
It's like
if we're hearing positive stuff around Caldwell, it seems like, is he picking it up? It feels like he's probably picking it up pretty quick.
yeah,
I just feel like Trey Owens could find himself in no man's land by week
I just
2.
don't know if familiarity to the offense is the thing that I'm going to use against Trey Owens as it pertains to Matthew Caldwell. I think just what that guy's learned by osmosis during his time here probably, even if he's been slow on the uptick, probably is better than a dude that's coming into what is it's been here like eight weeks,
Yeah.
not 9 weeks. So but I mean that's like we started with quarterback, and that's clearly the most important position on the field, and clearly I think as we go through the rest of this, you'll see it's. I know it's just the backup quarterback, but it's kind of maybe one of the bigger kind of battles or unknowns that's still left out there. I would think, right?
I think so. I think you have to figure it out going into the Ohio State game, then you have to figure it out over the next 3 weeks. I think there's 2 different races going on right now.
Yeah. All right. What do you want to go to next?
I mean, might as well go right in. I mean, I thought it was interesting. I was looking at your running back depth chart, and it's kind of straightforward. I had a bunch of ors in mine. I had an or between Wisner and Baxter, and an or between Baxter and Clark. I took the or out between Baxter and Clark. I think Baxter looks and everything sounds like he's a lot closer to 100% than I kind of expected at this date. Same can be said for Clark as well through the spring, but I guess I should ask you this question. You don't have the or between Wisner and Baxter. That would mean you have a little more belief that Baxter's also closer to 100%.
Yeah. Well, no, I have actually. So I think I don't have an or between Wisner and Baxter right now, but I think technically Wisner is ahead of Baxter, right? And that has to do with a couple of things. It has to do with the fact that Wisner's the guy from last year. He's he's gotten these preseason All SEC whatever awards. And I think coming in, it's like you can point to him as saying like, well, he's a guy who, despite your preconceived notions, was effective enough last season. I think if, admittedly, it feels like with each passing report, though, from each practice, and what we're 12 in now, it's like with each report from each practice, you get the sense that you need to be less and less worried about his health. And if he is totally healthy, that's a 1-2 punch between those two guys. I think that there's going to be a tandem between them, right? So I think you could easily put an or between them. But for me, I put Wisner, then Baxter, then Jarrett Gibson, then Christian Clark after Jarrett Gibson. And the reason I did that is because Jarrett Gibson's a guy who we've seen actually get in there, play short yardage with the ones, do this stuff. He's gotten work with the ones during the preseason here. I'm not sure that I've heard Christian Clark getting work with the ones, although we've heard all kinds of cool stuff about the way he's being used in the passing game. And then underneath Clark, I just have James Simon or Ricky Stewart, and that's one I don't have a real good feel on as far as who could be ahead there. So as far as running back 5, that's one where a little bit more blurry for me.
I like it.
Okay, wide receivers. So look, I think with the wide receivers, this is a little bit of a riddle because we have. I'm confident in the starting 3 right now, being Wingo, DeAndre Moore, Parker Livingstone. Now you have Emmett Mosley, the 5th, who is completely adjacent to those guys. But it's interesting. People have thought about him as a guy that could finally usurp Parker Livingstone. But during the open practices to start camp, Mosley was playing at the X directly behind Ryan Wingo, right? And so we've heard that he could play all these slots, all these spots. Chris Jackson told me at his assistant coach's availability that Emmett Mosley can absolutely play in the slot. So I think where I put him on the depth chart is I put him as either the number 2X in a battle for number 2 slot with Ryan Niblett behind DeAndre Moore. And then I put an or between him and Parker Livingstone at Z. So there's a three spots where I could see him playing, and I think just the combination of those three, the fact that he's versatile enough to play those three, makes me think that he's going to be getting in there soon enough. Now, whether it's a starter over Livingstone, I'm not sure, but I think those guys are your top four. Um, as far as the X wide receiver behind Mosley, I have Jamie French and then Michael Terry. Michael Terry feels like he's a little bit behind at the X because he's only been playing outside for the last like 7 practices or so. He'd been playing a lot in that slot role, like they have Niblett playing, where he lines up at the H or the R slot guy, kind of more of a running back type of player, utility type of player. And then with the slot, I have it DeAndre Moore, then Emmett Mosley or Niblett, and Dalen McCutcheon behind those guys. Z wide receiver, I have Parker Livingstone or Emmett Mosley the fifth, with Khalil Lockett or Aaron Butler behind those two. I honestly wanted to put Khalil Lockett ahead of Aaron Butler because I have not heard of Aaron Butler getting work with the ones, and I have heard of Khalil Lockett getting work with the ones. Do you think there should be an or between Lockett and Butler? I, at this point, kind of still think that there should.
I do have an or between Lockett and Butler. So I'm the same with you there. I have Mosley like you, like across all 3 positions. It just as like he's like the 4th guy or the 3.5, whatever you want to call him. The only other or I guess the difference I have with you is I have Terry or French at the X, and then in the slot I have it McCutcheon or Niblett. So I have the ors between those 2 guys. Where you have the or between Mosley and Niblett. So I have the or just 1 spot lower. So we're not too far off. I guess the one thing I would say is just that day that we saw Wingo not at practice and we saw Mosley playing some X. I thought Terry, just visually, I thought Terry seemed like, at least physically, of course, physically, he was more ready than French was. And I could just visualize a situation where if Wingo were to miss a game or 2 or something were to happen, then Terry would, I think, have a better chance of taking that step forward in a game than maybe French would as a freshman right now.
The Alpha seasoning is available at Texas Beef Traders, our good friends there right in the heart of Lakeway. You always get 10% off at Texas Beef Traders, and you always get a delicious cooked product whenever you use the Alpha seasoning on it. It's Cody and I's Elite Spice Blend. You can get it there or at alphaseasoning.com. Almost sold out of this latest shipment. We have a new shipment coming in. It's flying off like hotcakes. So thanks so much to all you guys for supporting our new seasoning company, Alpha Seasoning. alphaseasoning.com. You can put it on everything. It really is that good. You can scan the QR code there. Go to alphaseasoning.com. It's a great way to support us. Okay, let's go to tight end. So I put Jack Indries at the very top. He didn't start out camp at the top, but he's been working with the ones for most of camp. Underneath him, I have Spencer Shannon or Jordan Washington. Feel pretty confident about that. I think all 3 will play. I have Amari Winston in sort of a category of his own there after those guys is tight end 4. And I think the battle at tight end 5 is between Nick Townsend, who got back to practice after having a small injury in the scrimmage on Saturday, or Will Randall, Arch Manning's former teammate from high school. What do you have at tight end?
I don't have any orders. I just have it straight in order, very similar to yours. Indries, Shannon, Washington. For some reason, I just always want to put Washington ahead of Shannon, but I think Shannon, brings enough to the table that it's close. Winston, Randall, then Townsend. No ors for me, just straight shot all 6.
All right. Offensive line, let's start on the left side. This is pretty easy. We know that there's 2 scholarship guys. It's Trevor Gooseby and Jaden Chapman.
Yep.
I don't have any, like, left guard. Do you have it? Nato Yamuzulo, Nate Kibble, Devin Coleman, I'd assume?
Yep.
Okay.
Do you think Kibble's would be like left guard 2, right guard 3 potentially?
I think that I have the interior offensive line among the 2s. So I think Kibble between Kibble, Connor Robertson, and Connor Stroh. Connor Robertson's played the most out of those guys, but Kibble's the one that's the long-term best kind of prospect.
Yeah.
Right. So I think out of the interior guys, as far as the 2s, he's the best kind of future asset that they have. He would certainly all right. So at center, I have Cole Hudson, Connor Robertson, Daniel Cruz, and then at right guard, DJ Campbell, Connor Stroh, Jackson Christian. But you might think to yourself, we can't have Connor Stroh going in at right guard if DJ Campbell goes down, right? He's not ready to play. And we've seen what happens. DJ Campbell did miss practice once. What happened was Cole Hudson moved from center to right guard. Connor Robertson got elevated up to first team center. Daniel Cruz moves to second team center. Then they take Connor Stroh from right guard, move him to third team center, have Jackson Christian bump up to that second team right guard. So they don't, if something were to happen, I think to DJ Campbell, Nato Yamuzulo, all the rest of them, you're not going to backfill with one of those guards. I think it's more likely to backfill with Nate Kibble, but it's more likely what's going to happen is Connor Hudson moves to one of those positions, and then Connor Robertson moves up to center.
All right, so that's pretty much how I have it. I have it similar to the receivers where I just kind of like duped a couple of names, and I did that. I put Cole Hudson behind Campbell as well as being the starting center. I put Connor Stroh as the third right guard as well as the third center. I guess the only question.
Well, Daniel Cruz is your third center. Connor Stroh would be your fourth center, right?
You're right. Is that how it wasn't? I thought it was. Stroh wasn't working ahead of him in that one day.
Of Cruz? No.
I thought maybe I wrote that down wrong. Anyway, all right. So I just adjusted that on the fly. He's the C4. So left guard, I guess, is the one that like we've seen Nato there, Kibble, and then Coleman. Is there any situation that you would see just off of anything you've seen, anything you've heard that would lean us to believe that if a Nato was out, it wouldn't be Kibble that would go in at left guard? Or
the only thing that we've seen is that whenever Campbell was out, they'd move Hudson over.
Well, I know I'm talking about the other side. I'm talking about the Nato.
I think it's more likely that we would see Kibble just immediately backfill for that than we would see Stroh immediately backfill at right guard. But I still think it's more likely that they would move Hudson over to left and move Robertson up.
Okay, that was more of the question was, do you think it would be a Hudson or a Robertson move over rather than the Kibble move up?
I think Hudson would be the first option at both of those, with Robertson elevating to first center, which wouldn't be optimal. And then at right tackle, of course, Brandon Baker. Nick Brooks moves over from third team left tackle to second team right tackle, and then Jordan Coleman fills in with that group at the third team right tackle. That's how we got it. I mean,
your swing tackle is?
I don't think at this point, I don't think that we can say that it's Nick Brooks, right? I'm not sure that we can. I'm not sure that we can do that. And so if we're not saying it's Nick Brooks, I think your swing tackle. I mean, you got to gulp and kind of take a deep breath before you say it. I think it's Jaden Chapman.